What is my role in all of this here? Am I some like enlightened guru or whatever? No, I'm not, but I know a few things. And I want to help people to also be in a state similar to what I am in. Because I feel very great, okay? I really like myself and I like being myself. And I know that it didn't used to feel this way. So I now want to share this with others. So my desire is to share the deep wisdom that I've discovered and shift the conscious experience that other people have so that they also feel like a weight lifted from their shoulders, despite the very harsh reality that we're in. So I want to break people from this hypnosis and these limiting beliefs that actually make them stuck. Because this is like this sickness of modern society. That's what you see everywhere, happening to everyone. And I think this only can happen like as a movement where multiple people realize how serious it is that we're in, and to wake up from this dream that we're in and notice, okay, things can be way, way better, both individually and collectively. So those who level up their ego awareness will become happy and sharp. And those who will fall victims to society's hypnosis will live in fear and delusion. And this is not something that I'm pulling out of my ass. This is a story as ancient as old as time. Back in the day, it was certain aristocrats and monks and sages who knew the cycles of the world, the powers that be, you might say. And now it is knowledge that can become commonplace again thanks to AI and the internet, but it requires you to wake up from the dream that is your life. And this waking up process feels very wooey and kind of insane. It is there to see that the world that you're living in is really, really a dream, and it's incredible to realize this. It's because reality is consciousness. Existence is an internal play, and the more your mind aligns with this understanding, the happier you'll be. But if you're overly concerned with what other people think of you, if you're worried about if you're going to succeed or fail at your dreams, you will end up like most people, just following the norms of society like sheep and never to feel fulfilled. But you know that there's something much more greater that is possible for your life individually, but also as a collective. Because this is not some wishful thinking. You just need to look at what has happened throughout our entire human history, and you then can see how much we have changed and evolved as humanity. We have, even though it might not seem like it from your perspective, but we have become way more empathetic and way more socially aware. And we try to at least not harm other people for no good reason. So colosseums and gladiator fights and just slavery, of course, all of this is still going on to a large extent. But over the course of human history, humans have understood that there's actually a uniting force. There is something about reality that unites us all, and therefore you should not do to another what you don't want to be done to yourself. This happens on a collective level, but it also happens on the individual level. And the individual level is the self-realization and the self-actualization. Self-realization is to discover deeper and deeper who you really are, like your true nature. This true nature has so many names, and depending who you are, you might say it's the universe, you might say it's God, you might just say it's the self, and there it gets very wooey, and there are a lot of debates and fights that could be made about terminology. But I would claim that yes, it is literally the same as what people call God. It is the light that shines within you right now. So self-actualization is to fulfill your true potential. It's actually embodying everything that you know you should be doing or must be doing, like fulfilling your destiny, and then embodying the path of fulfilling your destiny, or to be in the position of actually having fulfilled your potential. And this potential isn't some abstract idea. Right now, for example, you have the potential to just get completely naked and start running on the streets like a madman or a madwoman. Maybe you think that this is very silly, and it is a very silly example, right? But you could do this. You could get naked and just start running on the street. But the reaction that it sounds so silly actually blocks you off from being able to do that. Of course, there are good reasons for not doing this. But notice how the reasoning why you shouldn't do this is just so immediate that you don't even think about it. Right? It is unconscious. You immediately know this is a bad idea. But there are so many things you actually could be doing with your life that are amazing ideas that are blocked off in the same way. So you are actually limiting yourself all the time unconsciously. And this unconscious limiting has happened by society's conditioning. So you believe that the things that society cares about, or your parents care about, or your family cares about, or your friends care about, that these things really matter. And it's not that they don't matter at all. It's not that the well-being of people in your community is not important, but oftentimes people care about things that are really, really, really unimportant. In fact, this is what we do most of the time. We delude ourselves into thinking that what other people think of us actually matters, when if you look at it from like an objective lens, like 8 billion people on this planet right now, why would it matter what somebody else thinks of you? Like some objective truth, these thoughts of other people, or these visions of you, of other people, they're just absolutely insignificant. So there's a restraint in your mind that behaves depending on how others think of you. And this is determining everything you do. Even slight little choices that you wouldn't think matter that much. Subconsciously, they influence you. And you take it as a given. And this is how we as a society together believe in this collective dream. For example, now in modern society, we all believe in science, especially in Western society. And science is, of course, amazing in actually understanding how the material world works and to make shit happen. Right? Science is amazing in that. But the moment you're actually trying to find out the nature of reality, or like some transcendental truth, well, then science is taking forever to figure out what the Buddhists already know before the death of Christ. And for this, science is awful. For the individual happiness, for like you, it's awful. Because why do you think we are having the most technological advancements ever? We are inventing AI, but we're still not happy. Like the society as a whole is struggling with depression and anxiety and happiness and overall purpose and financial gain. It's because what runs us is the collective hypnosis. It's the collective dream. The idea that having more money is the only thing that matters. Becoming famous and successful is the only thing that matters. Impressing your friends and parents is the only thing that matters. And from there, everything runs under this delusion. And this delusion, what then causes us to do? Well, now I am the only thing that matters. And since I'm the only thing that matters, and how people view me is the only thing that matters, I need to be above other people. In fact, I'm going to let people kill themselves for my own entertainment, because I think it's just so funny. But what you're actually doing is you are torturing yourself. You're just not consciously evolved enough to understand that we are actually a collective. Imagine how strong humans would be if we would actually have the collective unity of ants. I mean, in a certain way, if you look at society from above, we are like ants, right? But if we were all following each other's orders with coherence, with the same goal in mind. And I think the same goal is actually the unison of consciousness, the understanding that there's no separation between one and the other. And this creates collective unison in a society, but also for you individually. Because when you understand that the present light of your awareness is actually the light of universal consciousness, then all of these questions about what meaning is and what the purpose of your life is, they all become clear over time. You will start to understand what your role in the society that you are really is, and what you can actually give to the society. Because you can certainly give way more to the society than you're telling yourself. All of this fear and this insecurity is holding you back to an extent you cannot even fathom. It's not just, oh, I have this dream and I have not really started the dream. No, the way you speak to your parents is determined by that. The way you speak to your friends is determined by all of the subconscious programming that you have. Because every moment of your life, you're always concerned subconsciously what others will think of you. And it's not that you just completely get rid of any social like aesthetic. I mean, it's very important what other people think of you in some real way, right? If instead of talking to you in this way that I'm doing right now, and I just blabber nonsense to you, it doesn't communicate anything, right? So communicating truth matters, but it is important that it's your own truth, that you have experienced it for yourself, and then this is what you share with the world, not what some other people presses onto you. In the case of yeah, not running naked on the street. It's a good limitation that others have set for you and you yourself. But be very mindful of all of the limitations that you have that are not serving you. And all of this framework that I'm building right now for what reality is, this is beyond money and it is beyond fame. It is seeing how reality actually functions, like on a mechanical level, and to become one with this truth. And embodying it with your life, you can feel that this life is like a gift that has been given. It is a very rare opportunity to be a human, especially in this day and age. And what you now want to do is you want to take this gift and then 10x its power and then give it back to yourself. Become way happier than you think is possible, become way more fulfilled than you think is possible, and then share this fulfillment with others. Because you probably know moments in your life where you have had a glimpse of huge fulfillment or huge love for existence. You can actually take these moments and make them permanent. Permanent in the sense that you are human and you're going to die and then whatever happens, happens. But you can embody a satisfaction that eliminates suffering. Because instead of thinking about it like, oh, I am suffering, you understand that it is part of a way bigger collective narrative. That doesn't mean that your suffering isn't meaningful. It matters a ton, actually. It's the most important thing, you might even say. But only in the context of unison and consciousness. Because if not, then you think your suffering is the only thing that matters and the rest of the world doesn't, like, it's not real. You then think that your own suffering is the only suffering that is real and the rest of the world, it might as well not exist. And you can see the paradox in that, right? Because in your own life, you actually do only experience your own suffering, except if you're like very empathetic, I guess. But it's still your own suffering. But, like I hinted right now, the empathy is actually intelligence, right? So if you're empathetic, you are having a greater expansion of what reality is, instead of only thinking about it in your own self terms. And you can notice this when you go back to the wonder you had when you were a child. You just notice how your lungs fill your body with air and your heart is pulsating your body with blood. And just think about how amazing this is. Like, this is not some freak accident. It is really incredible that this even works. It's intelligence flowing through all matter. This intelligence is what you're made of. And this is what gives infinite possibilities for reality. And when I say infinite, I mean it. You have become convinced that we are in some super advanced state of human civilization because we're inventing AI and we are so technologically advanced. But this human experiment is just really at the beginning of history. If you think about dinosaurs having lived for millions of years, we humans are a new invention for the cosmos, for the universe. Like, we are new, and we're still trying to figure out this entire having a body thing with our hands and this incredible intelligence. So if you can put your life into this context and you're able to see yourself as a collective instead of just one tiny life, well, now you can imagine where we're heading. Imagine a human species that unites itself on the higher levels of consciousness, understands its unison, and now builds towards a utopia. So much of science fiction is now reality. And you think, well, now this is just how it is, right? So something as simple as a car is now so common that you can't even conceive what a genius must have existed to come up with that. What incredible luck that we have all the resources necessary to build a car and make so many millions of people drive it all over the world, completely revolutionizing the way we travel. And now it's just normal. We cannot even conceive that this isn't normal. Now imagine what the world would look like if we applied the same capacity for imagination, but for society as a whole, for consciousness as a whole, for the well-being of you. And there is a state, like some far out in the future, where everything is so much better. Like, clearly that's the case. You just need to have a bit of faith in yourself and faith in humanity. That these cycles of war and destruction hatred, and love are natural. And each and every single individual plays a role in that. Nothing that you do happens outside of society. So you are working from within the dream. And to actually affect that, right, to affect the dream that you're all collectively dreaming, what you want to do is you want to apply a scientist mindset, but to yourself, to your own internal world. Use all this esoteric, woohoo, magic, LSD, psychedelic stuff, and actually take it seriously. Not that you just believe in ghosts or in angels or whatever as some literal thing that's delusional. I mean, at least there's some physical entity, right? At least we haven't proved it yet. So I'm not saying to just believe everything, but they carry truth that you can investigate. And these truths are often in your own experience. The paranormal points to lack of understanding. It's not that it's all just bullshit. Open minds were always leaps ahead of what science was telling. Like when Albert Einstein thought about the idea that time is actually relative and not constant, he got so ridiculed for this. It is just, at this time, it was insanity to imagine that time is not constant. And now we know that time is relative. And the fact that time is relative also puts into perspective why consciousness is so weird and why there's so many different perspectives. The difficulty that most people have is to unite the subjective with the objective. The difficulty for most people is this object-subject divide. So I'm going to now give you like the tenets of my worldview. I'd say that these are the most important things, and it will also clear up the subject-object divide thing, because this is, I think, where people get hung up, because reality is paradoxical. There's like normally a phase through like the consciousness evolution of a person where they were maybe very superstitious, religious, then they become super atheistic or super rationally minded, super scientifically minded, but then maybe they have like a psychedelic experience or a spiritual experience, and then something opens up and it's like, oh, things are actually much more moldable than I thought. And so this is coming from all of this like trajectory type of view. Like I used to be like a very strong Christian as a kid, then I became very atheistic, got into psychedelics and philosophy and stuff, and now, this is what I'm very, very certain is true. So consciousness is the same as reality. Everything is consciousness because everything is reality. Even your own subjective experience is part of an objective, observable reality. Without your subjective experience, reality wouldn't exist. This means that if you could objectively measure reality, you also have to measure the subjective experience. You cannot just say that there's an external reality, but then dismiss all subjective experience, because as far as we're concerned, we've never actually observed anything external. We only know subjectivity. So this is a very important tenet. Then the second one is death is an illusion. All things are eternally recurring in timelessness. Time is relative because from the subject, right, from a human or an animal, there's a perception of time, which makes it subjective. But from a higher position, like from the position of death, there cannot be any time. It's timeless. Things just are. It's an isness. And because of this reason, everything is just almost like a morphing state of presence, which sounds very abstract and crazy, but it's you. You are this morphing state of presence. You are the awareness. You're not separate from it. I'm not imagining something that you cannot verify or prove for yourself. Then the other tenet is that the ego is a filter of delusion that makes you think that you're separate from pure consciousness, limiting a sense of freedom and control. So the ego is the thing that tries to control reality and tries to tell you, I am separate, like I'm this body there, and then there's a reality there, and I can never really interface with that directly. It's all just my subjective perception. And then the ego tries to control things, right? It's like wanting to manipulate reality in a way as if it is an individual entity. What Buddhists have said for a long time now is that if you really introspect into the nature of your consciousness, it becomes very obvious that there is no self. There is no controller in things. All you have is atoms through cause and effect moving the universe. Now this gets into a debate of determinism and free will. I just say that there's no difference between determinism and free will, because from the highest perspective, it all just is. But yeah, to see the delusion of the ego is one of the most important parts for, like, it's actually the only thing that matters for your individual happiness and for the happiness of the society. That doesn't mean that ego is evil or bad or needs to be destroyed, but it definitely needs to be understood. And the next tenet is that all human interactions are the interplay of looking for validation of your true essence. Every human just wants to be seen and is ashamed of who they actually are. So there's this, let's say, godlike consciousness inside of you that is just your true nature or whatever. And then there's these ego conditionings through the hypnosis of society, through the dream of society, that build an identity. And this identity that you've built throughout your life is actually real. Like, you cannot escape it. You are who you are, and this is true. And noticing what your ego is noticing of who you actually are and how you behave. And if you really do this honestly, what you'll feel is shame, you'll feel guilt, you feel confusion, and you won't like what you see. Because there's something about it that just feels off or wrong. And then this is what we project onto other people. So if we feel awkward about, if we think we're an awkward person, for example, and then we interact with other people, we then think everybody thinks that we're awkward. But it only is happening because you are insecure about your own ego. It has nothing to do with reality. And if other people think that you're awkward, it's because they are insecure about something about themselves. This is how it tends to be in like 99% of all cases. Next thing is that reality is spontaneously emergent out of nothing at all. There's no difference between determinism and free will because everything flows from a pure nothingness. There's no doer in reality. There's nobody that does anything because it's either infinite tiny little parts or just an infinite web of interconnections. So there's no doer. And what's behind this is actually nothing at all. So it's like empty space. And we also know now that atoms are like 99% empty space. Then there's also all of this quantum mechanics stuff, and people love to argue about this, maybe on a different video. Then the next one is that becoming more aware of reality is the process of elevating your own consciousness. This increased awareness then leads to a wide range of increase in life satisfaction, happiness, and well-being, which is basically what everybody's after. But instead of going towards this increase of awareness, what people tend to do is they strengthen the ego. So maybe you become aware of what the ego is, and instead of actually becoming aware of how it functions, you strengthen it. You strengthen it with more belief systems, you strengthen it with more ideologies, you strengthen it with more money, more fame, so that you can be perceived in a certain way, which is the ego delusion that I talked about before. And to actually understand how your ego works and to see that this is actually like a type of hypnotization caused by society onto you, then you see it's not real. And then it starts to untangle and you'll become free from it, which will make you feel way better in your day-to-day life. Okay, next one is that human civilization is collectively pulling and pushing between egoic delusion and consciousness liberation, which is the fight between dominance and control over others and empathy and collaboration. You can see this over history. We move slow, so it might seem like we're not advancing or nothing is changing ever, but that's not true. So there are like tribal societies and hierarchical societies back in the day were way more focused on absolute dominance and control in all states of the world. Like hierarchies of like kings, and way before that too, like just dictatorships or whatever, which are on the rise yet again, but that's the cycle. We start to understand, okay, let's actually collaborate, because if we collaborate, we actually become stronger. And we're starting to notice that now with the global economy. When we all have free trade, everything works better. If we block free trade, everything goes to shit. Next one is that each individual carries the whole weight of the cosmos on their shoulder, as each person is both a part of and the totality of God. This is why your life is the only thing you ever remembered. And despite feeling that you might actually not matter that much, there's like this pull or the sense of like, no, I actually matter a ton. And there's like a pull to something greater. And it's because the greatest good of it all, or just the ultimate blissful state of the Godhead, or whatever you might call it. I'm trying to think about words that makes it sound less esoteric. Well, this is the pull you feel, this yearning for something greater. And most people who enter philosophy actually feel this, and they start off with, trying to understand their own existentialism through philosophy and all of that stuff. And then usually at a certain point, philosophy becomes nihilistic, where they feel like it doesn't go any further. And then this nihilism has to get like flipped on its head. And then they see, oh, okay, it's not that nothing matters, it's that everything matters. So there's no difference between nothing mattering and everything mattering, because it's all just quite real. If you love what I'm saying here, I have a Discord community where I help people one-on-one, and we just, interchange ideas and questions. So I'd love for you to join. And if you're interested in more of my work, then I really recommend to watch this video next. This is so pretentious. The funny thing about being authentic is that it makes you extremely pretentious. And I think I'm embodying this now. I have to embody it now.